My name's Laurel. I'm a friend of Deb's. She invited me here. She's been on me for months to come here, so she finally got me to come, so I'm really happy I'm here, so thank you, Deb. That still there you see on the screen is from my first feature film. It's called Happy New Year. And Deb and I met at the Rhode Island Film Festival. Myself and my lead actor who's in the wheelchair, and Michael Cuomo, who's also my business partner and lead producer, met Deb at the Rhode Island Film Festival a few years ago. We ended up walking away with a couple of prizes, so it was really great. This film tells the story of a wounded veteran who's returned home after 4 tours of Iraq and Afghanistan, and he is not only recovering from severe battle wounds, but he's also recovering from some emotional wounds, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTS or PTSD. I'm not a veteran. I didn't serve in the military, so I often wondered why I was telling the story or why I was drawn to this story. And then it took a long time for me to figure that out. I think this film, basically, it started as a play, then it became a short film, and then it became a feature film. It was a 6-7-year journey of my life. And it wasn't the type of material that I wrote before. I usually wrote comedies, Tarantino-esque kind of comedies, things I thought would sell that were not me. They were me, but it wasn't really the essence of who I was as an individual. So this project came along, and for some reason I was drawn to it. It was inspired by a book that I came across at a bookstore called Purple Hearts Back from Iraq. So I happened to be perusing through Barnes & Noble one day. This was back in 2004. And I see this book, and they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I liked the cover of this book, so I picked it up. And, but I looked inside, and there were all these guys in there. This author, who's become a really good friend of mine by the name of Nina Berman, had gone around and taken photos of all these wounded veterans who were in the process of putting their lives back together. And these tragically beautiful images just struck me, and I ended up buying the book on the spot and reading it that night. This began a journey of me discovering all about the war, because I was not following the war at that time. It didn't really have anything, it didn't pertain to me in any way. I hate to say I didn't really follow the news reports, I didn't really care. But this book changed my life. And I then started to research things on the internet about, I started to read military blogs, wives and servicemen overseas writing, this is the way they could keep in touch with each other, let their wives and loved ones know what was going on with them. They write these blogs, so I got obsessed with them. And then I discovered this thing. I didn't really discover it, but I discovered it. It's something called post-traumatic stress disorder, or post-traumatic stress. I think everyone in this room has been through some sort of trauma in their lives, right? Whether it be a car wreck, whether it be a loved one dying of some sort. This film deals with combat stress or combat trauma, but I think we can all relate to it in some way if you ever see it. I decided to focus on combat veterans here. I don't know why, but I think that I needed to develop as an individual, as an artist. I needed to find my own voice, so I could give voice to others who were suffering in silence. So please let me know if I go over the 10-minute mark, because I'm kind of not telling the story I was planning to tell, but I am telling about my own journey with this film. And the story I don't really tell to many people. The first part of what I've mentioned to you is something I've said a million talkbacks, a million Q&As that I've done across the country and even overseas. But this story I'm about to tell you now is something very personal to me, and only a few people in my life have heard it. But it has very much to do with how I was able to arrive at the place where I was able to write this film and interview 80 veterans and their families and loved ones about their own traumas. At the age of 6, I was sexually abused. This happened several times in my life, but the first time was the most traumatic. It happened when I was 6 years old, and it was a trailer park in South Carolina. I was born in New York, and I grew up in South Carolina. And my cousins and I were playing in I was in a trailer park where my cousins Reggie lived, and we were playing football, and the football went over the embankment and down to the railroad tracks. So I went down and I looked for the football. I said, I'll go get it. Couldn't find it. I looked forever. So finally, in the distance, I see a guy, an adult man, holding the ball, and says, "Is this yours?" I said, "Yeah, that's my ball." My mother had already told me not to talk to strangers, but I wanted to get back to the game, so he says, "Well, I can give you the ball if you come with me. Just come walk with me for a little bit." So I walk with him. And we proceed to go through the woods or whatever. I won't get into too much of a detail here because I don't want to get too graphic, but he proceeded to rape me, and it went on for hours, and I didn't come back home until it was nightfall. I found out that I think at that point in my life, at that time, I kind of left my body. Because the next thing I know, I woke up and it was dark. It was black, pitch black, and people were calling my name. So I finally found my way back to my aunt's house. And my mother, who rarely screamed at me because I was a very, very good kid, and I always told the truth, they said, your mom's looking for you, where have you been? So I go inside, and she screams at me, where have you been? We've been looking for hours for you. And I tell her, because I can't lie to my mother, I tell her what happened. And she's like, what? So she inspects me, and I tell her again what happened. I told her what the guy did and all this other stuff, because it was an out-of-body experience. And she looked me over, and I remember she just hugged me and screamed at the top of her lungs. I never heard my mother scream like that in my life. And she said, what did he do to my baby? So next thing you know, the cops come, we go to the police, I'm showing photos of the guy, I pick him out, all this other stuff. I pick him out 3 times. So those are the details of that story. Not really locked up, my dad kept a watch over me. And for some reason, me being at the age of 6 thought I was being punished for this. But later on, I confronted my dad about this when I was an adult. He basically said, look, I was trying to protect you because I wasn't there. And that's the only thing I knew how to do. So you had to stay under my watch. But me interpreting that as that I did something wrong. And I regretted that for the rest of my life. How could I have done such a horrible thing and brought such a horrible thing upon my household and my family? And why did they hate me? I'm really sorry I did this. So I internalized that, acted out, drugs, alcohol, all that kind of stuff over the next few years. Then I read this book, Purple Hearts from Iraq. It all gets tied together, I promise you. In 2004, many years later. So I started reading about this thing called post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm thinking it only pertains to Iraq vets. My friend Jacob and I at the time were doing theater, and we decided we wanted to do some theater up in Harlem because people there weren't getting the kind of theater that we were doing downtown. So we found this play called Medal of Honor Iraq, and it was the first Vietnam-era play that dealt with people with post-traumatic stress disorder. So I played the lead character, DJ, who was based on a real person. And I started doing all this research about DJ. And DJ was really something. I said, God, he's just like me, I understand this. And I started getting really, really depressed. So we decided to do the play uptown in Harlem at a place called St. Mary's Episcopal Church. And it was run by Father Earl Coopercamp, who ended up becoming a person who saved my life. As I was preparing for this play in 2005, I became suicidal. Don't know why. I became very, very depressed. Called him one night and I said, hey, Earl, you don't know me that much. I know we're going to be doing the play there in a few weeks, but I need some help. And he said, yeah, you want to come to my office? You want to talk? I said, okay, let's go. So I go there and I talk to him, and I just spilled my guts for 2 hours. And I was very thankful that I had someone to talk to. Because I couldn't talk to my friends, I couldn't really talk to my mother, I didn't know. So he said to me, why don't you come back tomorrow? So I went back the next day. And I talked for another 2 hours. Very thankful. So then he kept saying to me, well, why don't you come back on Monday? I'm like, well, okay, all right. So this went on for 7 years. 7 years. But the second year of it, it was about 2006 is when the big breakthrough for me happened. I started to finally get the courage to tell him what happened to me when I was a kid, because I'd kept it in for all those years. I didn't tell many people about that, but finally got the courage to tell him. And he said to me, he says, I'm really sorry what happened to you, but you know what? You have to learn how to forgive yourself. And I was like, okay, yeah, okay, I'll forgive myself, great, great. I didn't quite know what that meant. And so, me getting this off my chest and revealing to him this horrible thing that happened to me at 6 and other times after that, I was like really feeling really good about myself. I started working out at the gym, I started buying new clothes, I started going out, and and it was really great. And so this new person was emerging, and I was thankful for him for doing that. I said to him in a session, I said, I'm thankful to you for helping me, really arrive at my new self. And he said to me, he said, yeah, but you still need to forgive yourself. You haven't forgiven yourself yet. I was like, what are you talking about? I've forgiven myself. He says, no, you haven't. And I don't know what you're talking about. This is what I said to him. So we go on the next week, and he finally says to me, you really need to forgive yourself. And I really cursed at him and said, what the F are you talking about? Forgive myself. You keep saying it every week. What are you talking about? And he said to me, tell me the story again, and I want you to tell it very slowly, because you tell it really fast every time you tell it. Tell it really slowly, and try to remember every detail of what happened to you. So, I tell him this story, and I get to the point where I'm at the train tracks, and the guy says to me, why don't you come walk with me? And this detail I had never said before, I couldn't remember it. I thought to myself, I should go back. And I didn't. So that was a detail I left out every single time. And when I remembered that, I cried like a bucket of tears in his office. And he said, forgive yourself for that moment. The next time you see a 6-year-old child, just look at him. They don't always make wise choices. Forgive yourself. So I proceeded to go to the gym and work out for 3 hours. I'm wrapping it up. I go to the gym for 3 hours and I work out. I'm just depleting my body of any kind of energy that I have. And I live in Harlem, and Harlem's very gentrified now. It's a really cool place to live, but at that time it was kind of, people, didn't want to come up there or whatever. But I'm walking home from the gym on 145th Street, and I'm completely depleted of energy. And I'm walking and I'm stumbling. And all of a sudden, as I'm walking down this big hill, I see a huge movie screen. And I felt like I was on drugs or something. And I see this incident from my youth being replayed on the screen. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm like this on the street. What is going on? And people driving their kids like he's on drugs or something. And at one point I just leaned against the wall at 145th and St. Nick, I think. And I sat down and just leaned, and somebody said, just let the movie play. So I see the grass of the trailer parks. There are no kids around. There's no one in sight. And I'm walking, and I see an adult me walking through the grass. And I'm like, where the hell am I going? It's me as an adult, but it's from my point of view as an adult walking through the grass. And we go down to the train tracks. And down there is a 6-year-old me. And he's looking up at me. And he's so happy to see me. And I break down the tears right there on the street. And the adult me goes over to him and hugs him like I hugged the breath out of him. And I said, I am so sorry for leaving you. I will never leave you again. And that was the first real big step in my healing process. I slept for hours that night. I think it was 20 hours, 17 hours or something like that. And I kept sleeping for days and days and days and days and days and days. I thought I didn't know what was going on with me, but it was all this weight being released from me that I've been carrying around, this weight of guilt that I've been carrying around for so many years. And I let it down. The healing process wasn't over. This movie helped me do that. But later on, a couple of years later, when I got into the making of this film, and I could look into the eyes of other veterans and be able to talk to them and know what they were going through, that in some huge monumental event that they had no control over, controlled the rest of their lives, that they were trying to get out from under this rock, I knew how to talk to them. And they suddenly started to open up to me. So it didn't matter that I was not a veteran. It didn't matter that I wasn't from the military. I knew the language. I didn't necessarily reveal what had happened to me, but I knew exactly what to ask. And so we were brothers in that sense. And so that was not the story that I was going to tell tonight, but that was my battle with myself in order for me to be able to become the artist that I am today, the artist that sheds light on those suffering in silence through my art. And this movie, that book, helped me do that. And And I am going to continue on to do that, whether or not I become a millionaire or not. So, because I think that's what I was born and put here on this earth to do. So, thank you for listening to me. I wish you all the best. Thank you.